firefighters, what happened there. And not so much, 4 positions were cut and so on, that was a management decision, but how it was done. And, the handing of the letter just after they signed a contract. And at the time, I just felt ashamed to have been a mayor of this city and see something like that happen to our employees, whoever they are. So, that was one thing. And then I guess listening to the business people in the community and the concerns that they have about not being able to do business here, or at least the perception that we're not open for business. So when I was mayor before, we worked at building good relationships with our employees. We worked at getting rid of red tape. We worked at cutting the budget so that we didn't see taxes rise like in the last 4 years, 37%. It's just unsustainable. So when I look at these things over the last 8 or 9 months, and I have a lot of people who sort of came to me and said, when you were there, you did these things, and for the last 4 years, we've been stagnant. Things have sort of slowed down, or I won't say gone backwards, but there's an impression that things are not moving forward and we're not doing things well over the last 4 years.
But Charles, you say that some of the things that you see happening in the last 4 years, as a result of some changes that might have happened when you were there as mayor or with your council. The current council, weren't they, of course, handed the city in the state that it was, so they had to work within the confines and the situations that they were presented with? So wouldn't that have been based on decisions and actions of your council?
Well, I wish that were true, but when I left in 2009, we had the lowest debt servicing rate in the province. We had almost $100 million between provincial, federal, and municipal funding, most of it from the province and feds. Most of that money is still being spent on the water treatment plant, Margaret Water Park, Captain Cook's. So those projects were carried out under my governance and were planned and financed under me. Much to my dismay, when I look at what this current council has done, I really don't see any projects that they've planned on their own that are coming up. You're correct in one sense in that when a council comes into office, they normally pick up where the other council left on. Much of the work has been done for them to carry on with. And I'm very concerned that that hasn't been happening over the last 4 years. There's been a lot of emphasis on, the pay raises and the iPods and things like that. But when you look at the actual work, I'm sure there was some good work done, but all of these other things, with the business community, with the pay raises, with the hike in taxes, all of those things have contributed to create an atmosphere that things have not gone well.
Because you have had that 4-year hiatus, we shall say, and you have the experience of being on the inside, knowing how things work, then you get the perspective of being just the common citizen. When some of those decisions have been made, because you've understood how things work in the background, what advantage or disadvantage has that given you in terms of looking at those decisions?
Well, like I said, I've stayed out of it for 3.5 years, roughly. For instance, take the pay raise, and there was some talk of there was no formula in place. Well, that's quite not true. When I was elected in '97, the very first time, we froze the pay for 4 years. In 2001, the next election, I was reelected in 2003, we proposed at the end of Priscilla Butcher's term as mayor that there would be a 2% increase maximum per year, but we would go with the CPI index. So there was a formula in place. There was something there to look after pay raises for council. So there was no need to change it. It was already there. So when you see all of the fuss and all of the concern, I guess, and legitimate concern that the public had, and you look at a council that says, well, there's no formula in place, or we have to change it, I sort of looked at it and said, well, that's not accurate. There was a formula in place, and if it were in place now, the council's pay would have increased to a maximum of 8% over 4 years, which is pretty well what they've given their union employees at 2% a year. So I didn't see any real reason for that to change. And what that does is distracts the public attention and council's attention and the management's attention away from the real business of running the city. Business people have concerns, taxpayers have concerns. If you're going to waste time really in your 4 years dealing with that, and I think that went on for about 14 months, it really distracts people from the real business of the city, which is really serving the needs of the citizens.
When you finished your term as Mayor, Charles, there was a lot of talk about the controversy around the new City Hall,
Sure.
which we look at now and we see that it's a beautiful building. But do you think that whole controversy and concern over the expenditure for that building is what essentially got you voted out?
That's probably one of the largest reasons. And when I look at it now, you can look back and say, well, why do people have an issue with it? And, we talked at the time about the state of the old City Hall. It was polluted. Our employees were smelling the oil in the basement. Nobody could get in if you had a mobility issue to get up over the stairs to pay your taxes. And we couldn't rebuild the site where we were because it was polluted and you couldn't dig into the ground. So we built a City Hall, but instead of just building it and paying for it ourselves, we went to the province and got $15 million. Then we got a library that was $4.5 million paid for by the province over 20 years. So the $21 million project, which is now the City Hall, Library, Museum, and Cenotaph, has cost the citizens of Corner Brook less than $200,000. It was free. And many people at the time did not understand that, or did not want to understand it, or did not see the need. But all they had to do was walk in through the old City Hall and they would have seen the need very quick. But very few people actually go to City Hall. Now we have a modern City Hall in a location which is the core of our city. You see more traffic downtown. I think there's 2,000 new users at the library alone. All of these things contribute to economic growth downtown, gets more people downtown. Businesses are refurbishing their facades and things like that. So it really has contributed. But I think the biggest factor was people didn't understand that we didn't pay for it. It's paid for by the province and by the federal government.
Your campaign slogan is leadership with a vision. You want to tell me about that vision?
Sure. First of all, the leadership, because I have the experience. And my vision is very simple. Looking back over the last number of years, not just the last 4 years, but where we're going as a community, as a city, there are certain needs that I see out there. We need to be senior friendly. We have about 30% of our population that are 60 years or older, and it's not going to get any younger as we go. So that's one issue. And seniors have specific needs that are not being met by the city. So it could be providing a space for them to congregate. It could be providing activities sponsored by the city. We don't do that, so maybe we should. Secondly, looking at family friendly. We want to get young people into our community. We have some very great sporting facilities. We have other things like the library and so on. We have lots of activities for kids to be involved. But there's a lot of issues with the cost of building a house here. There's a lot of issues with the cost of using the Pepsi Center and so on. So that's another category that we want to look at. So we'll look at how we implement practices that favor young families that move into our city and stay here and grow, help grow the community. I think we need to be business friendly. That's another issue that we hear of. My father ran a business for over 50 years, been involved with that and the Board of Trade and many other organizations. We have a lot of issues that when I hear businesses saying that they can't do business in Corner Brook, then we have a problem. So that's something that we need to change. And we have to talk to the business community. We have to take the business people here who own businesses. We have 300 businesses in the downtown. Let's get them on a committee. Let's talk to them individually. Let's find out what we need to do to cut the red tape at City Hall. And I guess finally is the issue of good governance and transparency. Over the last 4 years, there's been a lot of issue about the pay raises and all those things that really distracted people from running the city. So we have to look at what are the policies and practices that we need to put in place so that people going to City Hall feel that they're getting the service that they're paying for, that our taxes are reasonable, that there are no big increases in our taxes because people can't afford it anymore. And how do we explain to people what we're doing? How do we communicate better, whether that's with the citizens advisory committees and so on. So that's the vision moving forward.
We're just about out of time. I just want to ask you one thing. You mentioned, just because you talked about good governance and communication, and one of the things that happened when you were mayor before was it was a policy about speaking to media, and none of the councillors were allowed. It all had to be the mayor.
That's
What's
inaccurate.
the advantage?
That was not correct. It was
Can
never
you clarify
said
that? Because
councillors were
people say
free.
that.
Yeah, I know, and that was the thing, right? The mayor is the spokesperson for council. Nobody has ever said that a councillor can't speak on their own. Councillors are encouraged to speak on their own, and they should. If councillors choose not to speak on their own, that's that's how they deal with the media, whatever. But when it comes to the official business of the city, not only does the mayor speak for this on behalf of the entire council, but individual councillors are always encouraged to speak their own mind. And if you notice at the end of every motion that we had at any council meeting before we voted, I always asked if anybody had anything else to add. So I always give people their chance to express their opinion, and they can do it publicly, which is the best form, so then people know where they stand.
All right. Thank you very much for
Thank
clearing
you.
that up, and good luck on the 24th.
Thank you very much.
At Corner Brook Cafe, we care about what happens in our city. We would like to know what matters to you. Call us at 634-0525, email us at cbcafe@rci.rogers.com, or place those comments on our website, www.rogerstv.com.
When you meet with a lawyer here at Pool Althouse, you will be comforted by their experience, knowledge, professionalism, and knowing you are receiving sound legal advice.
Proud sponsor of Corner Brook Cafe.
Gitanos, the place of many gypsies. Food from around the world, music from around the corner, service from the heart. Feed the gypsy in your soul. Gitanos, a proud sponsor of Corner Brook Cafe.
Proper technique is no accident. It requires thought and attention. So, to remind myself not to twist, I am thinking nose between toes, use your legs. Nose between toes, use your legs. Nose between toes, use your...
Coleman's affordable wedding cakes are baked and decorated to perfection for the bride-to-be. Cakes for all occasions with edible images are available. Coleman's, proud sponsor of Corner Brook Cafe.
And that's it for Corner Brook Cafe tonight. Thanks so much for being here. As we close the doors tonight, the Excellence in Water Stewardship Award, the very first one, the inaugural one, was presented by the Council of Federation last Thursday. It's part of a wider strategy to improve stewardship of our water resources and to foster best practices. The very first one went to our very own ACAP Humber Arm. They got the award last Thursday. The Minister of Environment, Tom Henderson, was here along with Premier Dunderdale, and we're very happy to celebrate this award. Here's a look at this.
As an organization that's been our home since 1997 and a lot of great partnerships, many of which have contributed to the achievement we'll hear about this morning.
And while it's my first official visit as Premier to this campus, it's certainly not my first visit to this campus. And one of the very first files that I had to deal with when I came to government had to do with ecology and this particular campus.
The students and our future. And I used to just sat down looking at him there today and seeing my life flash before me as Sheldon went down through my portfolios.
Oh, we were very proud of you.
So much.